Hey guys. Hello. Hello everyone. We have a great session for you guys today. So this is actually, I think the first session of NamesCon 2018, right? First one? Everyone welcome. Applause, round of applause. Very excited to kick this off, start NamesCon 2018. Thank you everyone for being here. Great session today, like I said, we're going to talk about developing domains and selling the business, kind of appreciating the value of your domain. So great session for you today. Here we go. So that's the agenda for today. We're going to talk a little bit about me. Here's a great topic. That's going to be a short piece of it. Then we're going to talk about your domain. We're going to talk about how to build and grow your domain. We're going to cover some marketing, so SEO, pay-per-click, social media marketing. Then we're going to talk about creating value, how you actually build the value of your domain. And then we're going to actually have about 10-15 minutes hopefully left over for Q&A. So if you have questions as we go through this, feel free to write them down, and in the end there should be enough time to go through the questions. And if not, I guess stay after and answer questions. Cool. Let's get this going. So my favorite slides about myself, of course. These won't take up too much time, but I'll give you a little bit of background of where I'm coming from, so it helps frame the rest of the presentation and helps frame my background and how it helps explain some of the different steps in the domain evaluation and development process. So that's me in 1991. Wearing very fashionable shorts and sweater there. That was actually when I got my first computer. This picture actually just surfaced up recently. My brother found it when he was presenting something overseas. So for a while I didn't even realize this picture existed, but a great picture back in 1991. That was when I got my first computer. I remember at the time my parents literally invested all the money they had to buying a computer. At the time these were $2,000. It wasn't as affordable as it is today. And I still remember that one day my dad came home from work, found it completely disassembled on the living room floor. So it was, it didn't seem that way to me, but I'm sure at the time it was very stressful for them to have me working on this thing. Raise of hands for people who still remember computers this way. This was an i386. Hands up from 1991. This was before the RAM became modular. This was soldered on. This is when you had the big floppies to put in and install Windows 1.1 on these things. So we actually had a good amount of hands raised, a good amount of people that actually have been involved with this stuff for a long time, obviously. So this is when I started getting involved in domains, internet, and all of that stuff. In 1997, I started my first company, T35 Hosting. So this was around the time that GeoCities started and similar sites like that, Tripod. There was a lot of other similar ones that followed after that. The idea at the time, and ever since I first started getting involved with the internet, was I felt like the internet was such a great tool to help people communicate globally, right? Before that, you really didn't have the ability to create something locally in your house that could be shared globally. And that was the idea with T35 Hosting. It was a platform for people to be able to build domains and build websites they could share globally. And not only that, it was a free web hosting provider, one of the first to get free web hosting providers. The idea is that everything could be done at almost no cost, or in this case, no cost. For those that raise their hands have been involved with this stuff for a long time, you guys remember that back then, back in 1997, if you wanted to start a website or buy a domain or do anything with the internet, it was very difficult and very cumbersome. If you wanted to start a website, you would have to go to one of the internet service providers. You would have to go to AT&T. You'd have to contract them to actually build a website for you. It was people who were involved with it, it was a very difficult and cumbersome process. It would cost tens of thousands of dollars. It would take months. And for that reason, back in the mid and early 90s and even up till late 90s, there weren't a lot of people at websites. People at websites were literally the companies. Companies had the money and time to invest in it. There weren't a lot of people really buying domains or building websites. And the guys in the room who raised their hands earlier who have been involved with this stuff for a while, when you were buying domains back then, those are the ones you actually probably made tons of money on, because back then there wasn't really a lot of people involved in the space. 1997, so it was T35 hosting. That was actually a year and a half before a small, not so well-known company, Google, was started. So again, been involved with the space for a long time. In 2009, I worked with my brother to start Backlink Build, which was actually one of the first SEO companies. So again, the idea, similarly to T35 hosting, was to bring something to a market that wasn't there before and help people develop and share their domains and ideas worldwide. 2009, again, it's more recent than going back to early 90s, but it was still a time where SEO wasn't really a household thing, or people didn't really know what SEO was, right? At that point in time, even big companies didn't really invest in SEO because it almost seemed like taboo. It was there's a lot of black hat SEO going on, and nobody wanted to touch that. And there was really no white hat SEO where you did SEO that actually created value. So that's when Backlink Build was started, and we did a lot with Fortune 500 companies who didn't want to do SEO themselves because they didn't want to get in trouble for it, right? So they hired third-party companies to do it for them, and it was kind of one of the first white hat, like legit SEO services. And then later on in 2011, we merged all of the businesses that came before it with my brother into SmartSites, which is the agency I run today. And it's a full-service digital agency. We do website design, development, kind of a 360, everything digital we do, as we've been doing for a long time. We have now 6 offices worldwide, and since then, with these companies and some others that I started and been involved with since the early 90s, I've been in Business Week, NPR, Fortune, SmartSites itself is 5,000 fastest growing companies, top 200 privately held companies, and a bunch of other stuff. So just to help frame, as we go through the next couple slides, I've personally been involved with website development, buying domains, developing domains for myself. And now through SmartSites for 7 years, we've been doing it for the clients. Cool, so enough about me. We'll get to the topic of developing your domain and kind of building value. Cool, so for the next couple slides, we'll go through a couple examples, and I did my best to kind of try to frame it in a way that's easier to see and understand. And we'll start off, in this case, we'll use a lawyer example. I know there's a lot of lawyers here today, so it might be a good example to go through lawyer domains. So let's say you have this great domain that you just bought, awesome domain, we could say, awesomelawyers.com. And again, for this example, let's try to frame it a little differently. So domains are usually very hard for people who are not involved in it to really see or understand, because it's really an intangible asset or good, right? But it parallels very similarly to real estate. So for the next couple of slides, we're going to use the parallel to real estate to kind of picture the domain and how we're going to develop it. So you have this awesome domain. You just bought it, awesomelawyers.com. There it is, your beautiful plot of land. You bought it on Lawyer Street in Lawyertown, USA. Beautiful, beautiful property. It has nothing on it, right? You just bought it, your domain. But on this street, there's also a couple other people living on it, right? You have some neighbors. So to your left, you have lawyers.com. Also a beautiful property, but they actually developed it. So they have stuff on it. They've created higher value for it. They've spent time and money developing it, as opposed to your land that's still sitting there. On the right of you, you have superlawyers.com. Also a property that's been developed over time and sitting there next to you. So the question is, as we try to kind of picture this in terms of real estate and development, the question becomes, why are the guys to the left of you and to the right of you worth 20, 50, 100 times more than you sitting there in the middle. You're in the same street, in the same city, right? But your property is not developed. Is superlawyers.com really a better name than Awesome Lawyers? Not really. The value comes from the development that they built on top of it. Cool. So now we're going to kind of transition. We're going to take your neighbors away. We're going to focus on your beautiful plot of land that you bought. So there's your land. Again, your awesomelawyers.com. You have some flowers growing there. You have some trees. Beautiful land, but at this time, it doesn't really have a lot of value. At the very least, not as much as your neighbors. So for this example and for the next couple of slides, whether you're following along with my legal example or you have something you personally own that you could kind of overlay on top of this, maybe a domain that you recently bought or a domain you've been holding, try to put yourself in the shoes of literally a person who has a domain that they just bought, if you don't have it, and let's go through kind of the decision of what you could do with the domain. So the three choices you really have is you could hold a domain, right? Those are spider webs. You just hold it and just let it sit there, right? That's a truth that a lot of people use. You kind of buy a domain, you find a great deal on it, you buy it and you hold it and you hope that it appreciates in value. Whether it will or will not is kind of a shot in the dark, right? .coms have been appreciating, but there's also utilities out, so maybe it'll appreciate, maybe actually .coms will become less valuable and you'll lose money on it. At the same time, you have to pay ICANN fees, right? Every year you have to pay for the registration. In our real estate example, it's like property taxes, right? You let it sit there, you're not making anything off it, but you have to keep paying every year. You have to pay your property taxes. So for that example, you're really not investing anything, but at the same time, you're also not getting any reward. It just sits there. And I know a lot of people do that, and there's in some cases it makes sense. You really think it will appreciate, and over the last 10, 15 years, a lot of the premium.coms have appreciated, so there is some historical basis for it. Choice number two, so you can lease or park it, right? So you have this beautiful land, and there's a couple of ways to approach this. I know there's people who take their domain, and they lease it out. So you could actually lease it out to a company, they lease it for a couple of years, they pay every month, every year. You could also park it, right? You could put it at Cedo or any other parking platforms where you'll make a couple pennies along the way. There'll be ads on it. But at the same time, if it's a new domain you bought, how many people are getting to it, right? You have no content, there's nothing on it. It's not coming up in Google search for anything. Will you make something? You'll probably make a little bit, so you'll get a little bit of a reward. But at the same time, you're really not investing anything either, other than maybe your time to set up these deals. Third example, third option. And the most interesting one to me, and the one we'll spend the next couple of slides going into detail on, is to build or grow the domain. So in that case, you're investing money, and it's not even money, you're investing money and time into it. But at the same time, you have the highest reward, right? I want you guys to get the $5, right? You want to put in the $2 to $3 and get the $5 out of it. So in that case, you develop it and build this beautiful castle over it, right? Hopefully better than your neighbors, so you're worth even more than that. And at that point, you either can collect a monthly revenue from it, or you actually sell it for a lot more money than you would before. So for this session, we're going to go through what you need to do to build and grow it, to be able to put in the $2, $3 and get the $5 out of it. Cool. So the first question with, let's say you say, all right, Alex, I'm with you. I'll give you my $2 to $3, make me my $5. Where do we start? So the first thing you would do is, you need to build a website. So this is kind of general price information, but for the website you want to build, this is pretty much what it would cost. It could range anywhere from $7,000. You could probably do a little cheaper if you make a very simple website, all the way to $40,000 plus. For lawyer example, you're not building an e-commerce website. You're not building anything custom, so you're probably towards the left side of the slide. I would say somewhere 10,000 is probably fair, right? It depends how much you want to get involved as well. If you're building something, if you're building something you're really involved in, it can probably lower the cost. So instead of outsourcing the content, you'll say, I'm involved in this, I'll write all the content. So maybe you could drop the cost a little bit. But I think 10,000 for a basic informational lawyer website is pretty reasonable. And for those that I know, there's always a couple of people in the room like myself that are really into numbers. At the end of the presentation, we'll get into actually the numbers of what you invested and how everything netted out. So you have this beautiful website that you now just built, and you say, all right, I have my website, I put my $10,000 in, I put my $2 to $3 in, how do I make money from it? And for that, there's a lot of options, and this slide actually is very busy and has a lot on it, and it's because there really is a lot of different ways to monetize your website. The really easiest way is Google AdSense. So Google AdSense is a platform, you put their code on your website, and advertisers could buy placements on your website, you start making money pretty much right away. If you want to get a little bit more complex and make some extra money, you can actually make it a directory. Going back to our lawyer example, you can make a directory of lawyers, right? Even if it's not the primary purpose of your website, you could add a directory of lawyers. You can make it so people pay a little bit to be on the list. You can also make it so people pay a little bit more to be higher on the list. There's also sponsored content you could do, and this has become very popular. As you can see, Business Insider does a lot of this. With sponsored content, other companies write content to put on your website. So Google loves it because you have unique content. The people who write it love it because it's about their product, and you actually get money from it. They pay for you to put their content on your website. You could actually be doing all of this. You could have the directory, you could have the ads, you could have the sponsored content. You could start making money from the site. So after your site's built up, and now you have the ads, you have everything on it, you go, Alex, where are my visitors? So I have everything there, I have the ads there, but I'm not making any money because no one's coming to my website. Great question. Next step would be marketing, right? So there's different aspects of marketing. And again, we're going to try to frame this into our lawyer example. So this will flow through the presentation, and we'll see the numbers at the end. But generally speaking, advertising has 3 pillars. And this in itself could be its own speaking session. I've done speaking sessions literally just on this. But we'll try to cover it in a concise manner today to go through our example of the awesomelawyers.com that you guys just purchased. So we have pay-per-click. Pay-per-click is the immediate exposure example. Let's jump right into it. So it's quicker clicks. Cool. So pay-per-click is really, well, again, I'm a numbers person, so this is going to be formula-based, but more so than any other platform, it's very, very formula-based. So the way it works with pay-per-click is you pay for every click, every visitor that comes to your website. A lot of people would say, Alex, I don't think this makes sense for my website because it's a new website. I'm not really selling any product. Why would I be doing pay-per-click? The answer is that there's actually an arbitrage you could do here because, and what's interesting is everything goes through a Google network, so Google gets their cut of it, of course. But there's an arbitrage that if you know from the ads on your website, the sponsored content, the directory, everything, you know that from every visitor you can make 20 cents, right? You have the data, everything is now tracked, and Google Analytics is great, and you have more data than you know what to do with. But you know for a fact that you make 20 cents from every visitor. You can actually go to the pay-per-click platforms and you find keywords that are cheap enough to make that work, right? It's all an ROI formula. You want your customer value to be higher than what you pay for the visitor, for the customer. So in this case, if you know you're going to make 20 cents from every visitor, if you find keywords that cost you 10 cents, there's an arbitrage opportunity, right? You're paying 10 cents to get someone to go to your website, and then you make 20 cents from them, so you get the 10-cent value. And pay-per-click is very scalable. Once you know the keywords that work for you, you can actually expand and grow it and do other platforms. So again, it's not a lot of people think about this in terms of making money from their website, but there's a lot of opportunity with this, finding specific keywords that are cheaper, and as long as you know what value you get from every visitor, you can actually make a lot of money this way. Before we leave the slide, I would love to also point out, this is going to be a lot of clicking, so let's get all the clicks out. There we go. I would like to also point out there's a lot of platforms out there. A lot of people literally make pay-per-click synonymous with AdWords, almost like Xerox is for copying. But there's a lot of platforms out there. There's Facebook advertising has been growing. There's Bing, which has been shrinking a little bit, but still is usually incremental visitors. And what I mean by that is people who use Bing don't usually use Google. So a lot of people go, oh, I'll just do AdWords and I'll get everyone, it doesn't matter. There's still a lot of people that use AOL or use a lot of big properties that won't go on Google. They just don't. They go on AOL and they don't leave AOL. So these are all incremental visitors. And of course, there's other platforms. So just because you go on AdWords and you say, oh, lawyer keywords are like $20 a click, I can make this work. I make 20 cents from that visitor. There's not only a lot of keywords you can look into, a lot of different platforms. And I encourage everyone to be creative here and research a different platform. These are just some of them, right? And some of them on here, I'm sure people haven't heard of. Yahoo Gemini, doing a more in-depth pay-per-click section, that's the one usually people say, hey, what's Yahoo Gemini? Actually, when Yahoo did the deal with Bing, where Bing powered all their search advertising, they decided to exclude their mobile properties. So if you want to advertise in Yahoo's mobile properties, like Yahoo Finance, if people still use the app, you have to do it through Yahoo Gemini. And it's actually a really interesting platform because as opposed to Google AdWords, who sets a minimum click, so AdWords you have to bid 10 cents per click or higher, Gemini sets a maximum click. You can't bid over a certain amount. And there's very few people bidding out there. So you won't get a lot of clicks, right? But the cost might be low enough for you to actually make an ROI from this new website they just made. And of course, you have AOL advertising that still exists, LinkedIn ads that's trying to become a bigger player. Next one, SEO. So SEO is the one I get the most questions about. It's the one that people always ask me, Alex, what's the formula for SEO? What's the secret formula, right? And SmartSites is an agency where Google Premier partners, so we go to Google events and they actually tell us the formula, more or less. But at the very general level, the formula is unique content times relevant links. And you want to fix errors on your website. So for the lawyer example, let's search lawyers, right? You have lawyers.com that comes up number 2. And then you have Find Law that comes up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Find Law wants to be higher up, right? Why are they number 5 and Lawyers.com is number 2? Because Lawyers.com has more unique content and more relevant links. So let's think about it for a second. Again, another popular question. We have people call up our agency or even call me up personally and they say, Alex, I want to be number 1 for this keyword. What is it going to take? We have this from everyone from Fortune 500 companies to small startups that say, we're raising money, we need to tell people we're going to be number 1, how much do I need to raise? And people think that's usually not a number you can get, but actually it's a very simple number to get. So you would actually want to search the keyword that you want to be number 1 for, and there's third-party tools. You put in the websites that are currently number 1, number 2, number 3, and you can see how much unique content they have, and you can see how much authoritative, unique links they have. So it's literally, that's the formula. The more authoritative, unique links, and the more unique content, the higher up you are. You want to be number 1, you look up who's number 1 right now, you look up how much unique content and links they have, and that's what it takes to be number 1. There's a couple other things that go into play there, of course. Domain age is important a little bit, SSL is becoming a little bit important. But all those things combined, all the other factors combined, are single digits in terms of percent of overall importance of ranking.
Those backlinks or links on the site?
Backlinks.
Backlinks.
Yes. Links on the site, if anything, would work negatively against you, or they used to, they're now smaller percent. The original idea of Google was that you want to get as much link juice in without letting it out. So you want a lot of people to link to you without linking to other people. And it makes sense, right? From a higher up perspective, how does Google know, especially before all this supercomputer and AI, how would Google know that your website deserves to be number 1, right? A lot of really important sites link to you, and you don't have to link to any of them back. You're that important that they link to you, but you don't link back. So that was the idea, and it still mostly is. And then you need, the big thing is you need unique content, right? And the word unique is very important with content. If your content is duplicated from another website or another source, you won't get credit for it, you could get penalized for it, so it has to be unique content. Cool, I'm sure there's a lot of SEO questions. Feel free to, at the end, or grab me after the sessions. This is always a hot topic because everyone wants to be #1 on Google and get free traffic, right? Third one, social media. So social media is kind of a new force, and this is being valued a lot more now than it's been 5 years ago, and it's been growing. For a lawyer example, it's a little trickier, but it's still very important. So the first part of it, the left side of the screen, before the right one comes up, you want to build profiles on all the major social media networks that apply to your brand, right? For lawyers.com, do you need to be on Instagram? Probably not, right? So these are only a couple. There's tons of social media platforms out there, right? There's over, if you go globally, there's over 100 social media platforms. So definitely pick the ones that are relevant to you, but it does build huge value to your brand to also be on social media, right? Not only do you have awesomelawyers.com, you have the Twitter handle, Awesome Lawyers, and you have the Instagram handle, right? You have followers there and followers here, and you're interacting with all of that. That right away creates extra value for the domain and for the brand. The second piece that people usually overlook with social media is you can actually sell your domain on social media, right? On top of having all these like profiles and followers and all of that. For example, on Twitter, hashtag domain for sale, right? People post their domains for sale with that hashtag, and then there's tons of people that literally search that hashtag and look at domains that are interesting and then buy them. So not only do you build your domain value through being on social media, you can literally be posting about it and find buyers for your domain as well. There we go. Cool, so how does all of this get valued? So you say, I just did all this pay-per-click, I did the social media, I did SEO, I've been doing everything you told me, Alex. How much is this? How much value does this actually bring to me? Is it really worth me investing in SEO and investing in all these other platforms? So this is a third-party tool that tracks data for lawyers.com, one of our examples from the first slide. Lawyers.com actually gets 200,000. Think about that for a second. 200,000 visitors a month from SEO. So they don't pay for these. They get 200,000 free visitors from Google every single month. That's huge value, right? Of course, they didn't build this in 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. They built this over time. Their estimated monthly SEO value is $500,000. Right? How much value does that add to the value of your domain? Let's say lawyers.com just kept their domain empty, right? They didn't do anything, they just left it there. It's still an amazing domain, right? They could probably sell it for millions. But with this just adds a huge amount of extra value. Even if you use a very conservative multiple, which is 1 year's worth of revenue, the SEO brings $6 million extra revenue to the domain, extra value to the domain. So lawyers.com, obviously by itself, could have sold, I don't know, 5, 10 million. Obviously, you guys know these numbers even better than I do. But on top of this, you're bringing so many more millions of dollars of value. And again, this just proves how valuable SEO is. And as you guys know, how many people care about SEO, because it does bring this huge value that you get forever, right? One of my favorite examples to use with SEO is that, again, this comes from a question. People ask me, if I invest money in SEO, will I get it back? That's probably in the top 3 questions, right? If I invest money, will I get it back? And the answer I give them is that that's not even the right question to ask. You will definitely get it back, 100%. And people always laugh at me, but 100%, no matter what you put into SEO, you'll get back. The question becomes when you give it back, right? If you think about it, a lot of what you invest in SEO stays there, and you'll get the visitors over time. So even if you spend, I don't know, you spend $100,000, you spend tons of money, right? And now you get extra, let's say you spend a lot of money on really bad SEO. You spend $100 grand, and you only get 1,000 visitors a month from it. Again, people say, this is awful, I will not get my money back, but again, the question is, when will you get your money back? In this example, it might take 100 years, right? But eventually, the SEO you build, you actually continue to rank in Google. Obviously, if your competitors keep working on it and you don't, you'll drop off a little bit, but you'll continue to get the free traffic forever, right? Until Google goes out of existence. But in most cases, not in most cases, in all cases, it's not a question if you get your value back, you definitely will. It's the formula is how many months or years will it take to get it back. So I think it's a huge investment, not only for active websites, but for developing websites. Because, listen, if you go to investors who are interested in buying lawyers.com, and you have a blank website that has nothing on it, and all of this says 0, and you bring, versus bringing this to them and saying, I get 200,000 visitors a month from SEO, obviously the multiple you get for your domain is much higher. You also do paid keywords, it's lawyers.com obviously, but they spend 200,000 a month on pay-per-click, so they literally do all the things that we talked about. Cool, so for all the number of people out there, we'll go through, we'll finish our exercise of starting off with your awesome domain, awesomelawyers.com. So let's say you actually got an amazing deal on it. You bought it from someone, let's even say you got it for free. But the natural value of the domain is $10,000. So that's what you had if you didn't do anything to it. The development value, so all the stuff we talked about in the past slides. So you made a website, you spent 10 grand on a website, you created the social media profiles, you actually did a lot of development on your land, and you added another 200,000. Now you have SEO traffic. I won't say you're getting 500,000 a month of value from SEO like lawyers.com, but let's say you're getting 20,000 from the SEO traffic. So now your domain that was worth 10,000 before, you now get 50,000. So now let's finish the exercise of going through the numbers and how everything works. Cool. So this is again for all the number of people out there. So this is how your cash flows for the year. So month one, you followed my advice. You said I'll give you $2 to $3 signs, and let's build a website. You spend $10,000 and build the website. You put all the ads on there. You start doing some SEO. You don't even have to do much for Google to start ranking you as long as you have unique content. You have a couple sites that can see it. And this is a very conservative example. And I'll tell you, this is based on actual sites we've developed. So this is not just random numbers there, and it's very conservative. Let's say you spent 2 months working on it, 60 days, and on your second month, you made $250. Very little, right? I won't go aggressive with these numbers. I think it's very reasonable for someone who just created a good amount of unique content on a new website, got a couple links, you now made $250. And then just project that out. I didn't even make it exponential. It's literally $250 more every month. Very, very, very easy math. So third month you make $500. Fourth month make $750, and just project that out an extra $250 a month. Realistically, it goes a little bit more accelerated as you start getting more and more visitors, but just to make it simple, we'll just follow that pattern. And I didn't even project the cash flow for month 12, because let's say at the start of month 12, you say, this has been great, I'm ready for my new project, I'm going to sell the domain, right? The value is what we just calculated on the left, and again, this is close to a real example that we have for a client. And they wind up selling it for $50,000. Going again, being very conservative, you didn't even get the cash flow on month 12. You sold it before your check came in, you gave it to the new owners. You're like, I made so much money, let them keep the final check. So how does this all look? So you invested $10,000, which was from the first slide, $2 to $3 signs, and you wind up with 53. That's a pretty good return. And again, we just went through this whole exercise, and you guys see how conservative the numbers are. If you could tell people they could invest $10,000 into something and get $53,000 back, that's a pretty good return. Unless you're investing in Bitcoins, there's really not a lot of other returns out there that could create that kind of value. So that's my final slide. I'll open up to questions. Again, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be here the whole event. Feel free to email me, follow me on all the social media. I'm more active on Twitter, but I'm on all of them. And feel free to call SmartSites at any time. And if you guys took any pictures, I saw pictures being taken, feel free to post it with hashtag is cut off a little bit, but hashtag NamesCon on all the social media platforms. I'll open it up to Q&A. Yes.
Could you tell us some of your favorite tools? You mentioned tools.
Yes. Yes. So there's tools for everything. See if I can go back really quickly. This is SpyFu. There's a couple similar tools out there. SpyFu is one of the more cost-effective ones. Along with this kind of data, it gives you further breakdown. So you could see old organic keywords, and for paid keywords, you could actually see not only paid keywords, but you could see ads. So in my line of work, we do a lot of paid ads. So this is a very valuable tool because anyone that signs with us, I can see what their competitors are doing. Funny enough, a lot of people always say, "Oh, I know this competitor, he's doing great things. We want to copy exactly what he's doing." When we actually look through it, that's not always the case. Sometimes competitors aren't always doing the best thing, but at the very least, this gives you tons of visibility. AdWords has a keyword planner. It gives you an estimate, so you could actually, when we were talking about pay-per-click a couple slides ago, when I said look for keywords that cost less, you can actually go in, put the keywords in, and see how much it costs. So you can actually figure out the arbitrage opportunity. Once you know how much you can make from that keyword, you can figure out the cost. You can see all the numbers before you actually run it. So this is a good one. AdWords keyword planner is a good one. But there's tons of them. Questions? Go back to the Q&A slide. One more clicks. Any more questions? Going once? Going twice? Cool. Feel free to grab me at any point. I have tons of my business cards I'll leave up here, so feel free to grab it and reach out to me. And hopefully I'll see everyone here throughout the next couple of days. Thank you guys.